Hey, this is Mike Robbins. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the podcast. I hope you're doing well. You, your family, your team, everyone around you. I'm recording this early in the morning from a hotel room in Hartford, Connecticut, as I'm about to get on a plane and fly to Atlanta for another event today. Had a great event yesterday here in Connecticut. Um, yeah, today I want to talk a bit about letting go of what doesn't serve us. So I had an interesting experience last week. I was, so I did a photo shoot over the weekend. We're doing some new branding stuff and going to work on launching a new website here in a few months. And anyway, I needed to get some new professional photos, which isn't my favorite thing. That's a separate issue. But anyway, in the process of doing that, I decided to do something else that isn't my favorite thing, although, it's part of life. I went and got some new clothes. So I bought some new clothes and I was feeling pretty good about that. But in the process of doing that, um, I had to take a look at my closet and realize there's a bunch of clothes in my closet. I don't know if you have this issue, but there's a bunch of clothes in my closet that I don't wear anymore. And I think, for me, it's just things accumulate. It was COVID. I was mostly wearing, sweatpants and athletic wear and that kind of thing. And as we've sort of come back and the world has opened back up since COVID, there's just a bunch of things that I don't wear anymore, don't fit anymore, I don't like anymore. But sometimes I have a hard time with both clothes and with technology of letting things go, throwing things out, giving things away, donating stuff, passing it on. So, I had done a couple times through my closet in recent years, I thought, where I had sort of made a pass and gotten rid of stuff. But in this process, I realized it was time to do kind of a deeper dive. And it took me a minute, but I went through the closet and I cleared out a whole bunch of clothes and ended up taking them over the weekend on Sunday to Goodwill and donating them. And while it was challenging at first, ultimately it felt really good. And I was thinking about it. Several years ago, Michelle and I read, or Michelle read, and she told me about, but we started implementing the process from that book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. Maybe you remember that big best-selling book from, I don't know, 2017, 2018, something like that. But it was all about this sort of system of, getting rid of things in our house and just going through in our office, does this bring me joy? Does this bring me joy? I mean, that's kind of the main question of that book. And I remember Michelle really got into it, and both of us did, along the lines of like, are the things around us, the clothes, the books, the papers, the stuff around us, does it really bring me joy? And I do like that question for a bunch of reasons. But as I was thinking more deeply about this, there's more to it than simply just clutter clearing, as important as it can be to clear clutter. I'm someone who tends to accumulate some clutter in my office, on my desk, in closets, in places, whether it's clothes or pictures or books or papers or things like that. And that is an important process. Absolutely. Can we continue to sort of clear out our space, if you will, if we want to get good work done, if we want to be creative, if we want to feel grounded and peaceful and all the things. But there's also an element of letting go of things that no longer serve us in terms of thoughts, in terms of behaviors, in terms of beliefs, in terms of stories, if you will. And I've been thinking more deeply about that. What stories do I tell myself, about life, about others that no longer serve me? What beliefs do I have? What ideas, what thoughts, what notions do I have about the way the world works, the way I operate, that just don't serve me anymore? In the same way that those pair of pants that I'm never going to wear those, right? I was looking at them and Michelle and I were kind of laughing because I had this whole rack of pants that not only had I not worn in a long time, they literally, when I take them off the rack, off the hanger, there was like a line and dust on them. And I'm thinking, if these pants have dust on them, I'm probably not going to wear them. Why am I holding on to them? Right? But maybe I will, and who knows? And what if all of a sudden I decide? I did find a couple things, I will say, that I was like, oh, I like this shirt. It had gotten sort of buried in my closet and I didn't realize it. So sometimes when we go through the process of not only clearing clutter, clothes out of a closet or papers out of a box or old photos or whatever it may be, we might come across something. When I was a kid, I collected baseball cards and I was really into it. And I had a couple friends I was into it, and I'd buy packs of baseball cards. And if you did that at any point, you go through the cards and you pick out the good ones, right? The good players, and then sort of throw the rest of them in a big box. But one of my favorite things to do with my friend David up the street was every year or two, we would go through my big box of cards, the discarded ones that I didn't think were that good, that I wasn't going to put in my little, binders and folders, and where I would put all the special ones with the players that I really liked. We'd go through that box and just dig through all the cards, and we would inevitably come across some, oh, so and so who's now a star in the major leagues. Look, this is their rookie card, or this is before we knew that they were going to be a really good player. And I loved that experience because it was kind of like sort of, tilling the soil, if you will, or going through the clutter back when I was a kid and going through my baseball card collection. So sometimes when we go back through stuff, the stuff of life in our office, in our closet, in our house, we might come across some things that we realize, oh, I actually like this, or this is actually important, or I'm going to use this. Same thing sort of mentally, emotionally, if we start digging through thoughts and beliefs and ideas and we start questioning things, maybe we come across some things and go, no, no, this story really does serve me, or this is important. I'm going to hang on to this. But a lot of times we just start saying things over and over and over again that don't serve us, and we hang on to it because that's the story we've always told about ourselves, about our past, about what we're capable of or not capable of, about what our team can do, about, friends, family, spouse, kids, whatever the case may be. And, I was having this conversation yesterday with our client here in Connecticut that I was delivering a workshop for. And, one of the things I was talking about, we were talking about mindset and stories that we tell ourselves. And I was saying, sometimes in a situation that we're dealing with something, we're going through change or challenge or whatever, we can play kind of a thought experiment with ourselves. Whereas let's make up the worst possible case scenario, the worst story we can, the worst motivation for why this happened or why this person did this or what's going to happen if it all goes sideways. And just as a thought experiment, okay, this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and then the company's going to go under, and I'm going to, lose my job, and everyone's going to be miserable, and it's all going to be my fault, right? But then let's make up the best possible case scenario, which is like, I get promoted, I become the CEO, everything works out, I get, recognized on national I mean, what, And as we were talking about this, we're all kind of laughing because both this sort of worst case and best case scenario, if you will, usually when we take it to an extreme, it seems a little ridiculous. But what it does is it sort of expands our mind and makes us realize, oh, the story that I'm telling myself about this situation, both whether it's positive or negative, is just a story that I'm making up. And yeah, it's based on reality, it's based on whatever's going on. But like I've decided to tell myself this story, and then I'm repeating it and telling other people, and that's becoming sort of in and of itself a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. And, it's not just about language or semantics, but I remember years ago in my coaching training, one of the things we would talk a lot about is our language and saying certain things. And if we say things like I am or I can't or I don't, they become these sort of, declarations. But even if there's something we're struggling with or something that's been hard for us, even just saying things like, in the past, this has been challenging for me, or up to this point in my life, I haven't figured this out yet. And I know it might, again, just sound like words or semantics, but that's different than saying, like, I'm not good with money versus I've struggled in the past figuring out some things financially, right? Or I'm not good in relationships. I've had some challenging relationships. I've had some painful experiences, and I'm working on it. I'm looking at it. Or again, thinking about, our teams or the groups that we're a part of, like we have historically struggled with this, or this has been a challenge for us. How could we do it differently? What could we do? Because if we look at our lives, if we look at our lives both personally and professionally, there are things that we do, there are things that we say, there are things that we hold on to that just don't serve us anymore, right? Like an old pair of shoes that doesn't fit, or an old shirt or pair of pants that we're never going to wear again. But we hang on to it because we think we have to, because we don't know that there's any other option or alternative. But what if there was? Who could we find in our life that maybe knows some things about something that we don't know about, or seems to have ease with something that we find challenging? What could we do differently? What's a different path we could take, right? Letting go of what doesn't serve us, yes, can be challenging for a whole bunch of reasons. There are certain habitual patterns and behaviors that we have. But again, if we can look at it honestly without judging ourselves, without criticizing ourselves, and just say, wait a minute, is this serving me? Is this what I want to do? Is this what I want to say? Is this how I want to show up? And, again, not always easy to change habitual patterns and beliefs and thoughts and ways of operating, but definitely possible if we take some inventory. Again, like I did in my closet. Again, easier to get rid of old clothes, not always so easy, but right, take them off the hanger and out of the drawer and put them in a bag and bring them to Goodwill or wherever you might bring them, or give them to someone else, or take them to a secondhand store and see if you can sell the clothes back, or whatever you do with them, right? But like, it's letting go of old energy, if you will. I've been thinking about this in my own life with some of the ways that I operate in my business, in my marriage, and realizing, oh, I made some decisions years ago that maybe made sense at the time, but they don't serve me anymore. Again, just like buying that shirt that I bought 15 years ago that, hey, I liked it, but now it's either out of style or it's a little worn thin or I just don't particularly care for it anymore. It doesn't fit. I'm going to let it go and I'm going to buy something new if I'm fortunate enough to do that. What if we did that with some of our thoughts, some of our beliefs, some of our patterns, ways of being, if you will? So, what can we do? How does this sort of work in practical reality? First thing we can do is start to take some inventory, again, of thoughts, of beliefs, of patterns, particularly the ones that maybe don't serve us. The ones that are serving us, the thoughts, the beliefs, the patterns, the stories, if you will, that empower us, that make us feel good about ourselves and engaged in our lives. Like, we don't really, I mean, it's good to check in on those and just kind of make sure they still are serving us, but take some inventory of some of the things that don't serve you, some of the ways of being, some of the patterns, if you will. And again, it's not like you can just snap your fingers and transform them overnight, but as we take some inventory, honest inventory, right? In 12 step they talk about taking fierce moral inventory, I believe, or fierce moral accountability, like really looking within yourself. And when you identify a few areas or a few things or a few thoughts or a few beliefs or a few stories that don't serve you, the second thing that we can do is just start to speculate. What would be a different story? What would be a different idea? What would be a different belief? Who do I know who maybe thinks differently about this? Could I talk to them? Could I at least pay attention to them, right? But just starting to speculate. So we take some inventory, we start to speculate what might be different ways of thinking, acting, talking, relating to whatever it is. Again, it could be in the area of our health. It could be in the area of money or finance. It could be relationships or communication or parenting or, just the way we go about thinking about stress or deadlines or commitments or goals. I mean, there's so many areas of life that we can take a look at what's working for me, what's not working for me, but then start to speculate. Could I do something differently? Could I think something differently? Could I operate differently about it? One of the things, I think I was talking about this on a previous episode, but like, I've had an interesting relationship with numbers and goals over the course of my life. As a 3 on the Enneagram, as a former athlete, as someone who tends to focus a lot on goals and numbers, for better or for worse. And recently I go on these runs and I have a couple different runs in our neighborhood and I like to challenge myself and see if I can, you know, beat my best time with the certain run to get to the end of, and it's a fun little game that I play with myself. But a few weeks ago, maybe even was more than a month ago, I started to have this conversation with myself. Some mornings I'm up running and I feel really good and my body feels good and I'm going and I'm looking at my, you know, the timer on my phone and hitting certain markers and go, oh, I'm making good time. I'm making good time. And others, I get off to a slow start. I don't feel great. My legs are a little tight. I'm trying to. And so as I'm going, I'll often calibrate like how much am I willing to push myself? What do I think I can do in terms of the time? But I had this thought on a run again about a month or so ago, like, what if it didn't really matter? Because it doesn't actually, right? No one really cares except for me about my little time on my runs. It's just a little game that I'm playing with myself. And I started to turn it more into a game. And like, okay, this morning, as I'm going, I'm going to determine what am I going to try to get in terms of time, 16, 17, 18 minutes. I mean, these aren't really long runs, but And I was having fun with it. And like a couple of days in a row that I did it, I sort of surprised myself and went faster than I thought. And then there was a couple times I came up a little short and was a little frustrated. But I realized again, in the scheme of things, it doesn't really matter. Nobody cares. The whole point is for me just to exercise and move my body, sweat, get in a good workout. And the challenging myself with the goals is kind of just a way to gamify it and have me focus. And then I thought to myself, what if I did this for the goals that do actually matter more? Like some of the business goals or financial goals or other goals that Michelle and I have, and the ones that do have an impact on other people. They're not just whether I made it to the end of the road in 17 minutes and 30 seconds or not, but like what if I had the same mentality towards those goals, because they are kind of just made up. It's just a game. It's just a way to focus yourself. So again, I started to, and I've been really working on this, shifting a bit of my mindset, my approach, my thoughts about how I think about and relate to my goals. Are they still important to me? Yeah. Do I still want to accomplish them? Yeah. But what if I wasn't so I didn't grip so tight to them and I didn't make them so significant, right? Now, that's just an example for me in my life. What does that look like in your life? How could you start to speculate a bit differently as you take some inventory, as you look at some of the things, maybe, where is this not serving me? For me, with the goal thing, it's not that my focus on goals hasn't served me, it has. But some of my ideas, some of my beliefs, some of my stories about goals and the importance of them and how to go about them, I created a long time ago. And now the 51-year-old version of me today in 2025, as I'm recording this, right, doesn't necessarily need to adopt the same mindset and mentality as I did when I was 40 and 30 and 12 and whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, and this is all part of life and growth, right? We continue to learn and grow and evolve. What did Maya Angelou say, right? When we know better, we what? We do better. So that's the third thing we can do is start to look at not just speculate, but what are some things I could do differently? What are some things I could start doing, stop doing, and continue doing? I love those three questions. You've heard me talk about them before, right? I'm going to do a workshop later today in Atlanta with a leadership team. And at some point during the discussion, we will probably have that conversation. What can you start? What can you stop? What can you continue doing as a team so that you can be the best possible team you can be? I love asking those questions of teams. I love asking those questions of individuals when I'm coaching them. I love asking those questions of myself. What could I start? What could I stop? What could I continue? Because as we think about modifying our approach, our behavior, our actions, even some of our beliefs, our stories, starting, stopping, continuing, right? We start doing something new. We stop doing something that's detrimental. We continue doing the things that serve us. So what can you start, stop, or continue doing as it relates to some areas where maybe things aren't working or not as well as you want them to? Where can you let go of some things that aren't serving you? And that's really the fourth step is letting go. Can we metaphorically clear out the closet, if you will? I mean, look, starting with your office and your closet and your bedroom and your car and your physical space, like removing things. Every month or so, I go and just kind of clean up the desktop of my computer, and it always feels so good. Or if I'm on a long flight, like I was on my way to India last month, and one of the things that I did that I was most excited about, as dorky as this might sound, is like I cleared out a lot of stuff in my email inbox, and it felt so good to just let go of things because, again, things accumulate. And while it might seem sort of benign and not that big of a deal, really purging things, letting go of the stuff that we no longer need, that no longer serves us, it creates space for something new. And the feeling that comes about, when I walk into my closet now, just in the last few days, it's like, oh, there's so much space. I can see the clothes, but it's more than the actual clothes. It's the physical and emotional space of like, wow, something new could come about, but not when everything's so jam-packed, right? It's hard to create on a canvas that's already full. So can we clear the decks? Can we clear the canvas so that we can create what's next? That's what letting go of things that no longer serve us is about. Not with shame or judgment or ridicule or harsh condemnation, but really just an awareness of, oh, that doesn't serve me anymore. Bless it, honor it, acknowledge it, that part of ourselves that was protecting us or whatever the case may be, and let it go. And then be open to something new showing up that serves us even better for the life that we're living right now. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. As always, I appreciate it. You can check out the show notes or the YouTube description if you want to connect with me on social media or learn more about my work. Best place to do that is at our website, which is mike-robbins.com. Make sure to hit the subscribe or follow button so you don't miss any future episodes. And until next time, keep bringing your whole self to work. And remember, we're all in this thing together.